Right, in this video, I'm going to just discuss the relationship between sine and cosine and its role in their role in applications. When would you pick sine? When would you pick cosine? Because they're essentially the same graph. Sine, if I take this graph and I shift it to the left by pi over 2 or 90 degrees, this point goes right here, and I get the cosine graph. So the sine graph and cosine graph are the same graph. There's just a phase shift of 90 degrees. So an example of when you would use sine versus cosine. Let's say on the other side of the room there was I was holding a rope and it was attached to the wall on the other side. Okay, so if I move the rope up and down, it's going to create a wave. Yeah? So the question is, where do I start? Do I start, if this is the coordinate plane, right here, and I start right here at the origin, and I start going up and down, well then I'm going to use the sine graph, because when I go up and down, that's going to create the sine wave. If I start at the top with holding my rope and I start going down and up, well that would be the cosine function, because now when I go down and up starting at the top, that's gonna mimic the cosine graph. So those are two simple explanations that we can explain to students, and why we have the sine and cosine, where they're almost the same thing, just a phase shifted 90 degrees. But when you would use one function as opposed to another to describe certain situations. Later on I might go into this a little bit more, but since these videos are for algebra, we don't go too in depth into trig and algebra 2. But we do go more in depth once we get into trigonometry.